Sports, the Chicago way.
Greetings and welcome to Sports 101, the show that discusses sport beyond the X's and O's. Here we like to look at sport from a people, places, and cultural perspective. We also look at the game in the past, history, and the present, as well as things that's coming in the making. I'm your host, Jamar Harp. Be sure to follow me on social media at Coach_Harp412 and Facebook under Jamar Harp. Make sure you get social with Sports 101 and a litany of other shows on SportsZone Chicago by following SportsZone Chicago on social media. You can find SportsZone Chicago on Twitter at SportsZoneCHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Remember, SportsZone Chicago is the world's only Black-owned sports talk app. You can watch and listen to my show, Sean and Maya in the Morning, our flagship show, the Smoke Fellas, and many other great and interesting sports shows. Keep up with breaking news, your favorite sports team. And if you miss anything, please don't worry about it. Go to YouTube and search SportsZone Chicago. There you can find any missed shows. And all you have to do is subscribe to SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Now, after you do that, we need everyone to download the SportsZone Chicago app. The SportsZone Chicago app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Now I would like to discuss this week's episode, Triumph and Tragedy, Austin East High School Soccer, the community symbol of hope. This picture right here is a picture of the Austin East High School men's soccer team out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and they'll be the subject of today's episode. So Austin East High School, also known as Austin East Magnet High School, is a public school located in Knox County, which is in Knoxville, the city of Knoxville, Tennessee. The school included a magnet program in performing arts to attract non-African American students for state funding, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Austin East is the successor of two former schools when Knoxville was racially segregated, the all-black Austin High School and then the all-white East High School. Hence, after segregation, Austin East. Those two schools were combined in 1968 to form the integrated Austin East High School, which was housed in the East High School building. The Austin building was closed down. They didn't want the African-American kids on that side of town. Austin High had originally opened in 1879, and it was named after Emily Austin from Philadelphia. She was a Quaker. She raised money to establish the school as Knoxville's first all-black high school. She had arrived in the city of Knoxville around 1870 with the goal, again, from Pennsylvania being of the Quaker religion. They felt like even though African Americans may have been less than, they still deserved to be educated. But they had to be educated in segregated spaces. So she came from Pennsylvania to start a school and educate the African American children who at that time were having school. Remember, this is 1870, 5 years after the Civil War. So a lot of the schools were in church basements, different lodges of different fraternities and social societies, and sometimes shotgun one-room schoolhouses that were very prevalent, not in that area, but in the country at the time. Remember, it's 1870. Next, you have Edenton, North Carolina native named John Manning. He became the principal in 1881, and he was the first Black person to hold that position at the high school in Tennessee. He had graduated from Yale that same year, and he remained the principal there until he retired in 1912. East High School is one of the four schools, the others being West and South, which is now South Doyle and Fulton High School, that opened in 1951 following a split of the old Knoxville High. Initially, again, an all-white school, East began to enroll black students in the early 1960s as the Knoxville City Schools underwent the slow process of integration. In 1968, the two schools, which were only like 10 blocks apart, were combined to form a single racially integrated school located in the East Building, but named Austin East. Following that merger, many of the white students from East High School transferred to other high schools, leaving Austin East predominantly black high school. Fast forward to 1997, the school received magnet school designation and not offered a focus in performing arts, STEM education, and some other areas that again attract students to Austin East High School. Being a public school, they wanted to get numbers to increase their diversity, except in this case, it was diversity wanting to include more European Americans instead of the other way around, where most times you want to include individuals of African descent that were born or grew up in America. So in spite of this magnet program, which was intended for that very purpose, as of 2009 and moving forward, 80% of Austin East students were African American. After several years of failing to meet the performance benchmarks set by the national mandate called No Child Left Behind in 2008 and 2009, the school was reorganized into smaller learning communities. So basically, they're saying the school was taken over by the state, not only for the education, but also some other things that permeate the school in that community right now that are a bad influence on all the good, hardworking students and families of East Knoxville. Just like other black communities, due to a lot of factors, along with lack of knowledge of self and policing of self, East Knoxville become begotten of violence, in particular gang violence. So East Knoxville was a section of Knoxville, Tennessee, that lies east of the downtown area. So the downtown area is the measuring rod for locations. So that's the compass in regards to Knoxville. The main streets in East Knoxville are Magnolia Avenue, which if you ride down even further, turns into US Highway 70 or US 11. You have Martin Luther King, and everyone knows the jokes about Martin Luther King. If it's one of the dangerous streets in every city. You have Dandridge Avenue, or some of the main streets on East Knoxville. Just like gentrification and so many other African-American neighborhoods, urban renewal projects in downtown Knoxville in the 1950s and 60s displaced many of the African-American residents who originally lived downtown due to proximity to factories, who had to relocate to East Knoxville, making that the prime African-American area in the city of Knoxville. So throughout the 20th century and early 21st century, which is the 1900s up to the 2000s, the Magnolia Avenue area been considered like the red light district by residents of Knoxville and the Knoxville Police Department. So basically, Magnolia Avenue, where it was popping at night, where you can get street sex workers, drugs, you name it. Everything was going on Magnolia Avenue in the city of Knoxville. Austin East, which is not too far from Magnolia Avenue, is a small island within that series of islands, or right now streets that are permeated with this violence, not only in East Knoxville, but the city. And oftentimes, again, in these areas, those issues relate to poverty, lack of jobs, and education, which ultimately relate to crime. A lot of this economic suffering recently in East Knoxville is due to the national pandemic that has struck the nation, and it hit minority communities the hardest because a lot of them were working in the service sector in these jobs that had to shut down due to the pandemic. And with lack of education, they couldn't pivot to any other industry, or didn't have the knowledge to do so. So therefore, communities that had marginal incomes even decreased much further. According to United States Census data from 2019, the poverty rate defined that year was an annual income of just under $26,000 for a family of four in the city of Knoxville. With those numbers right there was a 24% rate, and that was more than double of the national average that people that lived under poverty. And of that 24%, a lot of it was concentrated within the East Knoxville community. A report that also came from the Knoxville County Community Action Committee stated that there was a percentage of Black residents in Knoxville living at or below the poverty line, and that number was around 43% in 2019, despite just making up 17% of the population. So again, that shows you the results of mainly your education and lack of the knowledge of self, that so you can do better things for your family and community, but also teach others as well. Again, due to these, the lack of these things, gangs and violence has increased within the East Knoxville community, and there was 37 homicides in 2020, and that was up from 22 in 2019, and in 2021, as of they had around 40 homicides in 2021, and this year the number is still growing up. This area, East Knoxville, where Austin East is located, they call it the gun zone. Again, with the different streets that we talked about earlier and all the gangs, it's a prime area for gun violence. Henceforth, all the killings within the East, the Austin East High School. This is a nickname that weighs heavy on the residents. Many of them that have been living there before integration and know what the neighborhood used to be like. And they fight to say that it doesn't tell the story of the entire neighborhood by just a little bit of people. Again, this is a community that had good standing even after integration. But yet when this community crime and lack of jobs, and then the education started to not be a priority, then you saw things start to decline. But during the first 4 months of 2021, the violence seemed to escalate even higher. Obviously, again, I think this is due to the lack of jobs with many people working in the service sector and that area being closed during the pandemic. During the Austin East boys soccer team's championship run that year, most of these shootings took place during the school year, and a lot of them had to deal with their friends and classmates, and that affected the team, the neighborhood, and the school on a holistic level. Their head coach, Coach Netherland, did a great job of keeping his team and student body together. When the soccer team's dreams were fulfilled, on the field, there was also, again, tragedy within the school as they lost 5 classmates in 1 year to gun violence. One of the deaths was even an officer-related shooting that happened in the school in the bathroom, and we'll see some footage of that later. Again, these are high school students, and these are their friends and classmates. Some of them teammates that are dying. You had one get shot in the school. The school, after that, again, is being a police presence in the school. Very hard to learn, especially with the trauma, dealing with 5 deaths of classmates in 1 year. I think that's unheard of for anybody, including, a teenager who is still trying to process, who they are in the world and have to deal with something as heavy as that. As a coach myself, I could see the grief that we'll have, and not really knowing how to, get rid of it, because it keeps happening over and over. So I can't grieve one friend or classmate without another one dying and then another one. It's sort of akin to back when I was in school in the late 1990s when the city of Pittsburgh had a lot of gang violence. These killings began at Austin East High School around January 27th. The first one was Justin Taylor. He was a 15-year-old sophomore. He was found unconscious and bleeding in a car a few blocks away from the school. He was taken to the hospital, and at that point, he was pronounced dead. The next day, There was a 17-year-old, another student who was his friend, was charged with criminal neglect homicide, as they believe the shooting to be an accident, and the friend ran. For some reason, Justin Taylor had a gun out and didn't handle it properly, ended up shooting himself, and or that's the story that was told or uncovered by the police. So that's one classmate that was gone, the senseless violence and the use of guns. Now on February 12th, Mr. Stanley, who was a 16-year-old junior, was gunned down as he left school in his car to go to work. They had surveillance videos on the outside and the perimeter of the school, and the video showed multiple Austin East students witnessing the shooting, but none of them came forward. So again, this is the notion of snitching in the African American community. And to me, if it's not snitching, if it's a death that's not associated, that was an accident, and basically Mr. Stanley got shot because the perpetrator thought he was someone else, but none of the students came forward. So a month later, 2 more students were arrested, a freshman and a 16-year-old, and they had already been in custody after firing multiple rounds at vehicles in January, and both of those were charged with first-degree murder. So now you have another case of students killing students. Mr. Stanley's grandmother, who had custody of him, is the one that said she believes it's a case of mistaken identity. He wasn't affiliated with any gang, but he looked like a boy that was targeted by gang members. There was other reports that say that he was running with the wrong crowd, but regardless, it's still students killing students and young African men killing young African men. Next, on February 16th, you have Janaria Nana Muhammad. He was 15 years old. She was 15 years old, and she was the co-captain of the school's dance team, and she was killed in a drive-by outside of her home. No one has been charged so far. No witnesses have come forward to the murder of Janaria Muhammad. And again, all these stories are students that attend Austin East High School. And again, some of the students' stories, the students are the perpetrators and the victims. The next incident that these kids had to go through was on March 9th, when you have Jamarion Little Dada Gillette. He was a 15-year-old aspiring rapper, and he had been known to run away. So he had ran away and just stopped attending school, even though he was supposed to be. He died after showing up at a hospital with gunshot wounds. So he got shot and was able to get himself to the hospital. However, he died while he was in the hospital, and no one was charged, and no one came to testify in regards to what happened to his murder. Another Austin East High School student. The next tragic incident was on April 12th, when a mother of a student called 911 to report that her daughter's ex-boyfriend, Anthony J. Thompson, a 17-year-old, had pushed her daughter and pulled her hair. And she added into the story that sometimes he carried a gun. At that point, 3 police officers arrived at the school to look for Anthony, including a school resource officer that was assigned to that school. There was body camera footage taken, and it showed them find Mr. Anthony in the bathroom stall, ordering him to show his hands. As Mr. Anthony began to stand up from using the bathroom, saying, "My bad," you can see an officer grab and cuff his left hand while pulling his right hand from inside his hoodie. There's a cry of wait, and then the officers reach for their guns and start to fire, and several shots went off, and this is in the high school bathroom on the first floor. After the shooting, there was one officer wounded, and Mr. Anthony was dead. At that point, Austin East was locked down. Police, the riot squad came with rifles to patrol the hallways in case any other students had a weapon. and it was hours before the officials announced that another student had been fatally shot during this situation. For many, this was the killing that was hardest to take, as a shooter was a police officer, a black police officer, a former graduate of Austin East. And again, so this long streak of violence in one high school caused the community to be an uproar. Students, teachers, parents, alumni, mainly people in this East Knoxville community, which was a long source of pride, begin to contemplate how to stop the killing and what role the police should play in the solution. It was also said there was a threat inside the school because a student was shot and killed by the police inside the school. They have a threat on the streets, and the police department can't be trusted. And this is due to the not only this situation, but other situations that are akin to many other neighborhoods similar to East Knoxville, where there's a adversarial relationship between the residents and the police. And all these words were spoken by a longtime resident of East Knoxville, Mr. Clifford Bishop, whose nephew, Stanley Freeman, was the second student that was killed in a situation at the school. He also stated he's not blaming the system. They're all hands on deck. It's going to take a village of people to do this. And again, these killings occurred as a nation was focusing on police brutality and the racism highlighted by the prosecution of Derek Chauvin, the police officer convicted of murdering George Floyd. These killings of these high school students, not only at Austin East High School, but other high schools that this happens throughout the nation, have two things in common. They all involve guns, and all the victims are majority young black males. A memorial was placed outside of the Austin East Magnet School, so the kids have a reminder of what happened every day, and then they have to go past this bathroom where the killing took place. So, I mean, it's very traumatic even to attend that school right now, I would think. On April 21st of 2021, the general attorney of Knoxville, Sharon P. Allen, announced that criminal charges will not be brought against the officer, who shot Mr. Anthony. She said that Anthony had a gun in his pocket and that it went off as he struggled with police, and that the officer, Jonathan Claybo, had seen the barrel peeking out. In the struggle inside the stall, the bullet from Mr. Anthony's gun hit a trash can, and the bullet struck an officer and that had been fired by another officer. There was another report that no shots came from a gun in Thompson's pocket. To dispel these myths, I would like to share my screen and show the video of this incident. Remember, viewer discretion is advised, but this incident did happen, and I think by seeing the video, you'll come to a conclusion of what really happened. Okay, so right there in that video, you saw Mr. Thompson handcuffed, and the officer shoot him more than one time, and I didn't see any gun come out. Hence the community outrage. The teenager and the officer accused, the officer was accused of not using resolution tactics in the situation, as yes, the student did have a gun. The other young man that was handcuffed to the ground had some weed in his pocket, but he did not brandish the weapon and try to harm any of these officers. It was just in his pocket. Okay, so right here you can see some of these students that attended Austin East High School that we spoke of. You have Stanley Freeman right here, Justin Taylor, Janaria Muhammad, and Jamarion Gillette. All these students attended Austin East High School, and due to senseless violence, are no longer with us on this plane. The next picture here is the 4 officers that were in the bathroom, and we're in this situation with Mr. Thompson, who from the video looks like he was shot and killed, and he did not brandish the weapon that was in his pocket. This right here, this next picture right here is of Mr. Thompson himself. You can just see a young kid that obviously, got misguided, but did not deserve to die. Here's the rally that they did at East Knoxville, and they marched, I think, almost to the University of Tennessee in regards to the violence and asking for help in regards to gaining back their community. This next picture is a caveat and an underlying theme to what happened. On the left, you see Mr. Thompson, and on the right, you see Mr. Thompson's ex-girlfriend's mom, who obviously you can see is a white woman. And after hearing that the police came to the school and killed him, she was visibly upset and regretted calling the police to get Mr. Thompson and telling him he might have a gun on him because he pulled her daughter's hair. Again, she was visibly upset, but she couldn't take back the damage. Upon her call, they went to the school, and Mr. Thompson ended up dying. This right here is the memorial outside of the school. So again, this is a constant reminder of what happened inside of the school. And then once they enter, again, the bathroom on the first floor is still there, along with the added police presence. So now these children have to go to school with police in their school, brandishing rifles and riot gear. So even with this wave of shootings and the current gang violence, residents of the East Knoxville community are attempting to take back their school and neighborhood. One of the shining lights and positivity of East Knoxville is the Austin East Roadrunners soccer team. Thank you for tuning in to this segment of SportsZone Sports 101. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss the East Austin Roadrunners soccer team of Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Jamar Harp, and this is Sports 101. We'll be right back.
Please stop and listen because this important message may directly apply to you or someone dear to you. Several thousand African American former full-time CPS teachers were unfairly terminated starting in the mid-90s and continuing to the 2000s. If you are one of those many former CPS teachers who was unjustly terminated, or if you are the immediate relative of a now deceased unjustly terminated former CPS teacher, you may qualify to participate in a lawsuit at no upfront cost to you. Please call 773-580-7183 immediately for more information. That's 773-580-7183. Do not delay. Act today, because time is of the essence. That's 773-580-7183. 773-580-7183.
See me. See me.
See me. See my dark skin and my kinky hair.
See me. Don't see past me.
Don't see through me.
See me.
See my tan skin and my curly hair.
See me.
Don't see past me.
Don't see through me.
See me.
See my face, wet with tears from years of oppression.
See my hands, weathered and worn from decades of pulling myself up through your society.
See my feet split from centuries of walking your delicate line.
See me.
See me.
See me.
I'm tired.
I'm tired.
I'm tired.
The Chicago way.
Welcome back. I'm Jamar Harp, and this is Sports 101. That show discusses sport, beyond the X's and O's. Here we like to expand our conversation and include people, places, and a cultural perspective, looking through the lens of history in the past, present, as well as in the making. Please make sure you get social with Sports 101 and the litany of other shows on SportsZone Chicago by following SportsZone Chicago on social media. You can find SportsZone Chicago on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, search SportsZone Chicago, but more importantly, download the SportsZone Chicago app. The SportsZone Chicago app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Now, before the break, we were talking about a lot of things that went on within the community and the tragedy that's going on in Austin East High School. Now, after the break, I want to focus on the triumph, mainly the triumph of the Austin East Roadrunners boys state champion soccer team. So amidst all the turmoil, they had some people that wanted to represent the area, the community, as well as the school and their friends, living and deceased, that they wanted to show that there's positivity within that community. Austin East High School boys soccer is led by 2006 graduate head coach John Netherland and his assistant coach Malika Guthrie. Malika Guthrie is pictured right here. She is a veteran of the Austin Knoxville School District and Austin East High School, and she helped Coach Netherland get his start on the soccer side. Coach Guthrie, she also leads the school's dance program and is set to retire at the end of this year, having over 23 years of service at Austin East High School. So kudos to Coach Guthrie. Take a bow, enjoy your flowers when you still can smell them. Up until this year, until she passed the reins to Netherland, she was the head coach of the girls and boys soccer teams. Her leadership in the dance program led to her unique recruiting strategy. If you wanted to be on a dance team, you had to play soccer as well. So they were in shape and running all year long and had strong legs. As for Netherland, he's a man that just loves sports and coaching. Again, he's a 2006 Austin East graduate. While at Austin East, Netherland played football and was also part of Guthrie's dance program, which meant he had to play soccer as well. Coach Netherland, he initially came back as a volunteer as a middle school football coach, and he helped Guthrie out as our assistant with the girls team. When the boys team job began to open up, he jumped at the chance, and him and Coach Guthrie began the tag team, meaning in the fall, Coach Guthrie would be the head coach of the girls team and Coach Netherland the assistant, and then those roles will reverse in the spring when the boys soccer team played. He's also, Coach Netherland has also been acquiring his United States Soccer Federation coaching licenses, which helps him move up the pyramid. And again, we talked about in previous shows how it's important and vital for not only African Americans to get into playing the game of soccer. We talked about the African origins coming from Angola, moving through the Portuguese transatlantic slave trade to Brazil, and then that style being prevalent with the Brazilian national team. And the main thing we also want to reiterate is more people on the coaching and administration side. So with Coach Netherland getting these certifications, eventually he can move up the United States soccer pyramid and possibly even one day be on a bench for the national team. Why is this important? Because right now, United States soccer lacks diversity, not only in its participation and its prospects, as well as the coaching and administration ranks that we just talked about. And that's one thing Coach Netherland is working on changing. Coach Netherland and Coach Guthrie both outside of the school work jobs at night so they can have time to coach during the day. And, you know, again, if you ever coach high school athletics, it's more than being a coach. You're a counselor, a jitney driver, a cab driver, you buy groceries. They essentially end up being your kids. They do some different jobs at night to help facilitate not only themselves, but their team as well. Again, this area they come in is very impoverished. So many of the students' families don't work, and which leads these kids to resort to crime in regards to keep up with the Joneses and fashion and other things. And just, feeling, without or less than, because you can't have what everyone else have. And that's one of so many factors that lead to this violence. Coach Netherland's role model when he was at Austin East was Coach Sam Anderson. He was a legendary football and track coach at Austin East, who also won state championships in football as well as basketball. In Coach Netherland's first year as head coach of Austin East boys soccer team, they won 2 games. But then the next year they won 7. And then his third year, 9. And they begin to climb with his model of discipline and success. One of the ways, Coach Netherland changed the culture from what he says is playing kickball and the true soccer, where, teams would kick the ball around and just chase and foul the opponent, into building a team that actually knew positions, style of play, and the intrinsic nature of the game so that they can be in certain positions to take advantage of the defense and ultimately win games. And that's one of the reasons, factors that Coach Netherland did to change the culture of the Austin East soccer program. Netherland also received help from the motherland in securing some top soccer talent. This gentleman right here, Chienka Sadibu Sek, was probably their best player. He was born in Dakar, Senegal, and his father moved to Europe when Sek was 8. And his mother, Miss Fatou Lamé, she moved to the United States when he was 10. So he had to be raised by friends of his family in Senegal, which, obviously wasn't very pleasing to him to be, 9, 10 years old without your family. During this time in his youth, 10, 11, 12, his family friends that he was living with in Dakar, they would make numerous trips to the United States Embassy to get a visa so he can rejoin his mother. But he finally succeeded in getting one in 2019. What most people don't realize, there's a cap or limitation on visas given to individuals from African countries. It's sort of like the situation, if you remember the Elian Gonzalez situation, where Cuba, if someone can come from Cuba and be a political refugee, but if someone came on a boat from Haiti, which is very close, they would be turned away. And there's a cap on immigration of individuals of African descent in this country. And due to other different factors, they weren't able to secure the visa until 2019. When Sek got to America, the only languages he spoke were French, which was the colonizing language, and Wolof, which is a common West African language in Senegal, along with the Wolof people or Mende people as well. There's a lot of different cultural ethnic groups that speak Wolof. Within 2 months of watching TV and videos and interacting with the other kids, he began to speak English, but his main language he spoke was on that soccer field. And Sek is a tall, forward that has skills, ball skills above the normal of a high school kid. And I also helped him fit in as he was, accepted by being, a good player. Sek, in a tribute to his homeland, he always wore a Pan-African necklace with the colors red, black, and green, probably demonstrating his love for his homeland. And if you can see in this picture right here, this is a sample of a Pan-African necklace where you see the red is representing the bloodshed by the people that were killed and taken away from the mother continent. The black is for the people that are still there, and the unity of all others in the African diaspora. And it's green is for all the vast resources and land within Mother Africa, waiting for us to come back and build. And that's everyone in this Pan-African society. Now, outside of Sek, Coach Netherland was also blessed with approximately 20 or so players from this 2021 championship team from different places in West Africa, even in the Middle East. He had a few individuals from East Africa. So he had sort of like a World Cup or African Cup of Nations team. Defenders, Marius Erakundo was born in Tanzania. And he's originally from Burundi, but his parents fled during the civil war there as Burundi borders Tanzania. Then you got the brothers Ezekiel Nasabanua and the team captain Ilonse Hazakimana, who also from Tanzania. There was players from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Senegal, and even someone from Iraq. Coach Netherland said it was a blessing to have a blend of cultures, and particularly African cultures, on her team. So he had people that were indigenously from Africa, Africans born in America, European Americans, Hispanic Americans, and people from the Middle East or Arab Americans. He said it was like a World Cup team, and it's a great mixture of culture, and that was the high spirit and passion that these kids can not only show to their peers in their school, but their